Hello there. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the show. Ryan Kaufman coming your way live from Widener Field, where tonight the Switchbacks take their shot at MLS Club Sporting Kansas City. More on that in just a moment. But let me start by, again, welcoming you and sharing my appreciation for you joining me, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are free to download and free to use, and both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719 24/7 1313. You could call or text into the show. Producer extraordinaire Ray Dominguez standing by, eagerly awaiting your correspondence. So let me start with why I am here. And if you are a fan of when a mid-major gets the opportunity to host a Power Four school in a particular sport, you're going to love what's going on tonight at Widener Field, because tonight in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup, the Colorado Springs Switchbacks are going to be taking on, as I mentioned, Sporting Kansas City of MLS. And it is one of the things that soccer gives us that is unique in all of sport. I mean, the closest thing I can find is what I just alluded to, a mid-major getting to host a Power Four school in college football or college basketball. But this is, it's not, it's a little apples and oranges, right? Because these are all professional players that are out here playing in this match tonight. But it has that same energy, same feel, the Switchbacks being the underdogs and having nothing to lose, going up against a team that most casual observers would say, well, of course they're not going to win, because Sporting Kansas City is at the MLS level and the Switchbacks are at the USL Championship level. But that's what makes, I think, the Switchbacks dangerous in this spot tonight, or any USL Championship club. We've seen Sacramento be able to get to the finals of this tournament. And I think the key becomes, I think, just your desire, your prioritization of this. And it's a tricky spot for clubs and head coaches to be put in, because it's in the middle of a season, right? And this match does not count towards the Switchbacks trying to bring back the piece of hardware that they won 2 years ago in the USL Championship Cup. This doesn't count towards that. And winning a U.S. Open Cup is not a higher priority. It's just not. It's never been. Your league title is what's most important in American soccer. So the fact that you have this competition thrown into the middle of your season, it makes it very tricky. And do you throw your best 11 out there? Do you rotate the squad a little bit? How much are you going for this? And I think every club has their own way of dealing with it. I think the Switchbacks' way of doing it has changed. This year, the leadership group of the Switchbacks went to Alan McCann, their first-year head coach, and said, we want this thing. We don't want to view this as, something we got to get around. We got to navigate in order to pursue our bigger goal. We think that this can add to our ability to compete for the bigger goal, right? The idea of winning, no matter what it is, preseason, U.S. Open Cup, USL Cup, whatever it might be, the leaders of this team imparted to Alan McCann that they want to win this trophy. And you've seen lineups being put out by Alan McCann in the first two rounds that reflect that. And it's look, there are going to be some players that maybe you haven't seen for a little while or haven't seen in a starring role that will take that tonight, but you're not going to have to, Google the names of a lot of the Switchbacks players. It's going to be the guys, the vast majority of them who have been on the field week in and week out for this team because they want to go for this thing. And when you combine that nothing to lose mentality, right? Because you take your shot against an MLS club, no one expects you to win, plus your desire to win it. And I think that makes the Switchbacks even more dangerous in this spot. And I think it's a different feel being at training yesterday and talking to the team and talking with Alan McCann. It feels different than it did a year ago when they hosted New York Red Bulls. And it's, if we're being honest, it's a more vulnerable group. That New York Red Bulls team that came in here to Widener Field a year ago, they had just appeared in the MLS Cup the previous season. Like, this is a Sporting Kansas City team that's kind of rebuilding. And I think that gives a confluence of events right now, a confluence of factors that gives the Switchbacks a great opportunity to win tonight. And I think that there's a way that all of what I just mentioned can kind of show itself on the field, right? Because at the end of the day, with everything I said, this is still an MLS club, right? And the Switchbacks are in the second division of American soccer as it sits right now. So there is some reason to think that, if players at the USL Championship level were capable, they'd be playing on MLS clubs, and I understand that. So there's no doubt there's a quality with this Sporting Kansas City team. I don't want to say that this is going to be easy tonight by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be unequivocally the biggest win of the year for the Switchbacks if they can get it. But in terms of the belief, in terms of we've got nothing to lose, but we also very much desire to win this, I think what encapsulates it is the game plan that Alan McCann shared with me out at training. Take a listen, Ray, if you don't mind hitting that. Yeah, you have to attack this thing, right? You have to play the same way that you feel, in a way, about this competition. Like, if you want to win it, that's great. And you want your best 11 out there so you can try to win this match, then that's awesome. But you also got to play like it. You got to play like you have to put together the best performance of your season. You can't sit back and say, we're going to, try to keep it close and then see if we can by chance get a goal. No, you got to go for this thing. And I think the first 15 minutes of this match are going to tell you everything, because the Switchbacks are going to be going at Sporting Kansas City with everything they've got. And if they can find an early breakthrough, then if the pressure was already on Sporting Kansas City to an extent because they are the favorites, they are the team from MLS, it's going to be even more so. And I think there will be a little bit of shell-shocked in a way if the Switchbacks come out and get a goal early. And I think it's important for the Switchbacks. I think as this match goes on, it favors Sporting Kansas City a little bit more. I think the Switchbacks need to jump out early on them, attack from the outset, try to get an early goal, and maybe one's not going to be enough, but you start on the front foot, you put Sporting Kansas City in an early hole, and you put even more pressure on their shoulders to come back, and you also get the crowd into it tonight. Like, the crowd that's going to be here at Widener Field is going to be excited, and they're going to be looking for something to go bananas about early on. And if the Switchbacks can get an early goal, they will have something to cheer about. So I think the first 15 minutes are going to tell us everything about this match. But just talking to the team, being around the team, trust me, it feels different. They're attacking this in a completely different way than they have in years past. And I think it's going to serve them well if they put together what would be the best performance of their season. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think from a practical standpoint, in terms of an X's and O's standpoint, I think the way the Switchbacks play, we talk so much, especially here as we approach the NHL and NBA playoffs. We talk about matchups and how important they are. I think the way the Switchbacks play can give Sporting Kansas City some problems. This is a team that's very possession oriented. They want to stay on the ball. They want to be deliberate. If the Switchbacks can speed them up a little bit, especially if they play vertically, right? Those long balls down either sideline here at Widener Field behind me to either one of the wings, whether it's Levante Johnson or Yosuke Hanyo or Jonas Fjellberg, depending on how the lineup shakes out. Playing those vertical balls down the sideline can really stretch this team out. And something that has plagued them early on in the MLS season is the space they have left behind their back four and their goalkeeper. And the Switchbacks can exploit that, right? You get down the field, play a quick cross in with guys crashing the net. There's going to be a lot of space there. And I think if the Switchbacks were to break through in this match, whether it's in the first 15 minutes or at any point, I think that's kind of the way it's going to look. Long ball down the sideline, quick cross in for someone, a striker like a Corey Bennett to crash in and get the goal for Colorado Springs. And I think another way too, just watching Sporting Kansas City early on in the MLS season, I think they're vulnerable on set pieces. I think that's where the Switchbacks can get them as well. Roland and I have talked a lot the first month or so of the season about how much the Switchbacks have put in work on those set pieces. And it's not just corner kicks or free kicks. It's also those long throw-ins of Sam Williams. This team is improved on the set piece opportunities, and that's a vulnerability of the Sporting Kansas City team. So I look at it and I compare these two teams, and Roland and I are going to talk about it during the broadcast, which begins at 5:30. I think there are a lot of boxes that the Switchbacks check that could make this the right matchup for them at this stage of the U.S. Open Cup. But it's, we've talked about the Switchbacks throughout this year, and there have been some matchups that you think are going to go the Switchbacks' way, and they haven't. You got to do it on the field, right? That's what it's going to come down to for Colorado Springs. But from a game plan standpoint, from a tactical standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, and from just a want to, I think a lot of these things go in the column of the Switchbacks. And if they're able to all put it together, they will, for the first time in club history, knock off an MLS team and move on to the round of 16 and put themselves in prime position to maybe win a different trophy, not the one that they won 2 years ago. And that's still, as I mentioned, the biggest goal. But right outside of where I'm broadcasting today is the trophy case. They have a chance to put another piece of silverware in there. And I think this team is all in on getting it. And I think you will notice, if you came out to the match last year against New York Red Bulls, you're going to feel a difference in the stadium, and you're going to also notice a difference on the field with the way that the Switchbacks attack here. They're going to go all out to try and beat this Sporting Kansas City team, and I can't wait for it. Our pregame coverage will begin at 5:30. You will actually be able to hear that pregame show both on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. And then the match itself at 6 will be exclusively on Extra Sports 1300, as well as the Extra Sports 1300 app and extrasports1300.com. I'll remind you as we move through the show today. In the meantime, just getting going with this Tuesday edition of Drive Time Sports live from Widener Field. Coming up next, why the Avs are doing a good job of pushing through to the finish line, but there's some shenanigans along the way. You're listening to 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Back here at Widener Field tonight, the Switchbacks host Sporting Kansas City of MLS in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup. Tickets still available, switchbacksfc.com. But don't forget, they'll be back in action this weekend as well. Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, they will be hosting Monterey Bay FC back in USL Championship play. You can get your tickets for that. Might as well get your tickets for both at switchbacksfc.com. So the Avalanche right now are, and you're probably dealing with this with your kids, especially if you have a kid that's getting ready to go to college. I feel like right now what the Avalanche are dealing with, or what they're having to battle, is a bit of senioritis. Right? Everything is set for them. The exams are done. They know where they're going to college. It's just about a week left to school. And now, because of the absence of Jared Bednar, they got a bunch of substitute teachers right now that are coaching them. So I think you can kind of feel this the last couple of games against Vegas on Saturday and last night against the Edmonton Oilers, that this team is fighting a little bit to try and match the desperation level, the want to of their opponent, because, and I heard it, 30 times it must have been during the broadcast last night, from every player, from the broadcasters, from Dave Haxtell, who was the acting mouthpiece for the team with Jared Bednar gone. It was playing the right way, and it's staying sharp. And that's what what's the Avalanche are trying to do here in the last week of the season. And Dave Haxtell is he thinks that the team last night, after they beat Edmonton in a shootout, feels like the team is doing a good job of staying the course and playing as hard as they can. And it sounds a lot like Nolan Pratt on Saturday. Like, in no way would you call it the best performance of the season for the Colorado Avalanche. Neither one of these games. There are obvious lulls in the game, but they're doing enough good. And it maybe should tell you the discrepancy between the Central Division and the Pacific Division. The fact that the Avs have nothing to play for. Edmonton and Vegas have a ton to play for, and yet both of these games end up going past 60 minutes of regulation. So the Avs, I think, are doing as good of a job with this as can be expected. And they do end up winning in a shootout. But along the way, getting back to the senioritis stuff, the senioritis diagnosis, if you will, there are still some moments where you go, yeah, this team is they're looking forward to the postseason. This is what Parker Kelly did at one point last night. Sportsnet Canada there on the call. Parker Kelly literally grabbed the puck, or caught the puck in midair and threw it out of the Avs end. That is not allowed. He served a penalty because of it, and Parker Kelly should know better. But once in a while, this team, and there's actually video going around that he was announcing the starting lineups for the Avs. It's a tradition, obviously. Jared Bednar will give the starting lineup. With no Jared Bednar, they're kind of moving it around and giving different guys opportunity. And Parker Kelly was like unhinged in the I should have grabbed the audio, but Parker Kelly was kind of unhinged giving the starting lineup. So this team they are goofing off a little bit. I mean, I just think that that's apparent, but they're locking in certainly enough to be competitive, to take both of these teams, Vegas and Edmonton, good teams, but maybe not at the Avs level this year, and taking them into overtime. So I don't know what more you could ask of the Colorado Avalanche. Now, as far as what's at stake moving forward, they got 2 games left. First of those 2 is tonight in Calgary, making the second leg of the Alberta trip. If this is something that interests you, the Avalanche right now, picking up the 2 points last night, now have 117 points on the year with 2 games left. In 2001, they had 118 points. In 2022, the year they won the Stanley Cup, they had an 119. Now, point total does not necessarily mean that the team automatically is better than both of those teams. And I talked about this last week. The true measure of this Avalanche team is ultimately going to be, do they hoist a Stanley Cup? You know, the points they get during the regular season are just the first part of it. But for this team, and they got 4 points that they could possibly get from these last 2 games, tonight in Calgary and then Thursday back at Ball Arena for the home finale, they can surpass both of those teams. And I think that would be, if nothing else, a nice feather in the cap of this team to, I think what it signifies more than anything else is just what I talked about earlier, that this team is wanting to stay sharp as much as they can. They're wanting to play the right way with, inevitably a couple of lapses here and there, but they're wanting to push through to the finish line. It's a very, despite some of and think about yourself at your job, like you're probably locked in for your entire shift, but once in a while, maybe you want to crack a joke with your coworker or something like that. It's kind of where the Avs are right now. They're locking in, they're getting the work done that is necessary. And I think setting a franchise record for the most points would kind of show that they were as locked in through 82 games as any Avalanche team has ever been. And the fact that the Avs could end up, and I talked about this last week, that 0-1 team to me, like that, they're on another level. The roster construction that they were able to take part in because there was no salary cap, Bork and Blake and Foote and Drury and Hayduk and Forsberg and Sakic, like just an embarrassment of riches for a team in the salary cap era to have more points than that 0-1 team. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. And it was crazy to me when the team that eventually won the Stanley Cup had more points than that team in 2001. So it would certainly invite the comparisons. We've done that. We will continue to do that as we get closer to the postseason. But I think this Avs team, is attacking it these last few games as well as you could expect. And they got another one tonight. This one's going to be tricky. Second night of a back-to-back. I think what has helped the Avs over the last 2 games is who they're playing. Vegas, Edmonton, these are playoff teams. These are teams that the Avalanche have been through the wars with over the years. Tonight it's Calgary. And you don't have Nazem Kadri to kind of lift everybody up, right? Nazem Kadri would be raring to go for this game. I don't know how much everyone else is. This is a trap game, to be sure, for the Avs tonight in Calgary. We'll see how they handle it as they get closer to maybe breaking the franchise record for points in a season. Now, there's another piece of this. Who will the Avs play? That is becoming more solidified as we go along. Now we know it is, I shouldn't say it's only down to 2 teams, but as of today, I think Anaheim is in danger of dropping down to the wild card. But right now, the two wild card teams, Utah 1 point up on LA, and the matchup right now, if the season were to end, would be the LA Kings. And I've talked about the Kings. I think that they're good to provide all the respect LA deserves. I think they are a very good transition to go from the regular season to the postseason. I think LA plays a style with a little bit of star power in Artemi Panarin. I think they can give the Avs, a little bit of resistance. I would still expect the Avs to win that series in probably 5 and maybe even less than that. But I think it would be a good transition from going from, especially what the Avs are dealing with right now, trying to muster that effort level night in and night out, trying to push through to the finish line, the way that the Kings try to take away time and space, the way they clog the neutral zone. I think it would be a good first-round matchup for the Avalanche as they get prepared and ready for what's awaiting them, what's going to be meeting them in round 2, which is the winner of the Dallas-Minnesota series. But I can say the same thing about Utah. Utah has been a team, you look at the 4 meetings this year with Utah, they're, except for one, they've all been 1-goal games. One has gone into overtime. Like Utah, because of the familiarity, because of the way that Arizona, never forget Arizona, the way that Utah plays, I think it provides a lot of the same things. And there's players that the Avs know, at players that Utah knows. There's no secrets. I think that presents, a good first-round matchup for the Colorado Avalanche. I think looking at some of the potential scenarios, I think if you're an Avs fan and you're saying, okay, what is going to get this team as ready as they can be for Dallas or Minnesota? I think the worst outcome is Anaheim. I think that's the one that it's going to be like, it's going to be the Avs just demolishing them. And look, I think that the Avs are going to finish off any one of their first-round opponents in 4 or 5 games. But Anaheim, they're young, and Joe Quenneville has done a great job, but they are a young team. They are inexperienced. There is a just happy to be here feel with the Anaheim Ducks. If they fall down to the 8th spot, I think the Avs are going to run right through them. And it's going to be no resistance. And I don't know that that's the best, transition to go from the regular season to the Dallas-Minnesota series. I mean, there's something to be said for finishing off an opponent early and being able to sit there and watch Minnesota and Dallas go to battle for what we expect to be 7 games. But Anaheim's not ready. Anaheim's not ready for facing the Colorado Avalanche. So I think LA has some pedigree, have some players that know what it takes to win in the postseason, just not enough of them. And I think the style of play is conducive to postseason. Same with Arizona. But Anaheim they'd be deer in the headlights, and they would absolutely be the embodiment of what Darryl Sutter said a few years ago, a waste of 8 days. I don't know that it would even take that long for the Avs to be able to finish off the Anaheim Ducks. So, look, the Avs got the number 1 seed for a reason. It's so they don't have to expend too much energy to be able to win their first round series, with all due respect to Utah, LA, and Anaheim. So they'll handle it. They'll handle it the way they handle it. But if you're an Avs fan and saying, okay, what can give the Avs a little resistance, make them a little bit more playoff ready for what awaits them in round 2, I think you're looking at LA and Utah as being maybe the better matchups for that to happen. Again, Avs in Calgary tonight, penultimate game of the regular season. Take your thoughts at 719-24-7 1313. Coming up next, it's about time to hand out awards in the NBA. So I think Ray and I are going to do that. Get the jump on the voters. That's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Live from Weiner Field, the show continues. Switchbacks in Sporting Kansas City coming up at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, want to let you know that tax day is almost here. It's tomorrow. But don't stress. Enter the Uncle Sam's giveaway for a chance to win $5,000 to bail you out. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest for your chance to win $5,000 with the Uncle Sam's giveaway, sponsored locally by Kruger Brothers Construction. Plan now, build stress free. Extra Sports 1300, thanks to Ray Dominguez, is now on TikTok. And the one big takeaway, I think our first video that we posted on TikTok is still getting me flamed right now because of one of my picks for postseason awards in the NBA. So see if you agree with the users on TikTok. I bring in Ray now to kind of you're going to be leading the way here. You just let me know, Ray, which award you want to start with. I'll give my pick, you'll give yours, and I'll tell you why I'm right and you're wrong. Start from the bottom. Okay, we're building the anticipation. All right. Okay, Rookie of the Year. You and I know, disagree on this. I'm going with Cooper Flagg. I think that the weight that he has on his shoulders this year, given what transpired with this franchise before he arrived, the fact that he was, basically you're going to make us feel okay that we don't have Luka. I think he walked into an extraordinary situation. I think he has handled it extremely well. And I look at Cooper Flagg and I say, in what area has he disappointed? To me, he's been the most outstanding rookie. He's done it with all the expectation. And so that's why I think he's the Rookie of the Year. But you're going a different way, yes? And let me ask you this. When is the last time, and I'm legitimately asking, when's the last time we took winning into account when it came to handing out the Rookie of the Year? Because is that your argument that it's because Con Knippel has the Charlotte Hornets in the play-in tonight? Mm-mm. And he has set a record for three-pointers. So, and I heard Dan Patrick's Above the Noise commentary yesterday, and he said that there's really not a right answer. It's more of a choice, and the choice that I am making is like what we do for like offensive and defensive player of the year in the NFL. We don't really factor in winning. It's just the most outstanding player on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. I look at the same with the rookie. I think Con Knippel has been terrific, and it would be and I kind of hope that the Charlotte Hornets get through and we're able to see a full series with this young, exciting Charlotte team. But I will go back to the year that LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony, and we were reminded of this by a colleague of ours, shouts to Josiah today, that LeBron got the Rookie of the Year despite Carmelo Anthony taking the Denver Nuggets to the playoffs. And that's why I say we don't normally include winning. I think some people might include it this year with what Con Knippel has done. But this is one that I'm okay either way. I think it's a matter of taste. I'm gonna go with Cooper Flag, but you will go with Con Knipple for Rookie of the Year. Oh, there you go. Like they fired Nico, they traded Anthony Davis. What else can they do to win you back? Well, that's not happening. They can trade Cooper Flag. You are not allowed to have nice things, Dallas Mavericks. I other than MVP, I think this is the one that I have had the most difficult time with because I think there are so many candidates that could be. I mean, Mitch Johnson. Obviously, you look at the improvement of San Antonio. You look to the East, and you say Charles Lee with what he's done with the Hornets. I think there are about a half a dozen coaches who deserve Coach of the Year consideration, but I think in the end, and I've always had him looming. I think it's JB Bickerstaff. I do because I talk repeatedly about how the more difficult jump for a team is to go from being there's one jump where you go being irrelevant to being competitive. And I think that was Detroit last year. They were in the postseason. They gave the Knicks some problems. And the harder trick to turn if you're a team is to go from that to being elite. And Detroit was elite this year. They got the 1 seed. And what JB Bickerstaff has done to continue the growth of this team, I think he goes back to back. I do, because I think he has done a tremendous job with Detroit. But you look at Joe Mazzulla, you look at Mitch Johnson. I think there are a lot of worthy candidates. I'm going to go JB Bickerstaff of the Detroit Pistons. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, we agree on one. That's nice. What I right, I did have Joe Mazzulla on my mind. I think he's done a tremendous job, but at the same time, I have to be like, I thought this team was going to be really good. And it's kind of what I hold against Jaylen Brown. It's like, as great as he has been, I'm not surprised, and I guess that's maybe in a way a little bit unfair. I think what it comes down to is it's a tiebreaker, right? I think Mazzulla has done a tremendous job. I think JB Bickerstaff has done a tremendous job, and maybe that Detroit has exceeded my expectation and has gone from a competitive team to an elite team. I think just gives him the edge just by a bit. So we'll go with JB Bickerstaff. Now, I think Tim Hardaway has a tremendous case for this, but I'm going to stay in the Western Conference and I'm going to go Keldon Johnson for the San Antonio Spurs. I think San Antonio deserves a lot of recognition for all of these awards. I think San Antonio, to get to where they are, had to showcase their depth. I think their depth was able to get them to where they are, the second overall seed in the NBA. And I think, or in the Western Conference at least. And I think he deserves it. I would love to see Tim Hardaway win it. I think they're just better candidates. What say you? Mm. Non-Wemby minutes. I have not heard of non-Wemby minutes. Shouts to Luke Cornett. Mm. Well, and I think that's actually a great transition into our final award here. As what would that award be? Okay, I'm going with Victor Wembanyama. Like I I think that yes, San Antonio has gotten to where they are in part because of the depth, in part because of the coaching job by Mitch Johnson, but the guy who has changed everything for this team is Victor Wembanyama. And how valuable he has been on both ends of the floor, and this is not a new phenomenon. We talk about Kawhi Leonard on the defensive end. I just think no one has had a more remarkable season this year. When you take everything into account, the how he's how he's lifted up the team, statistics, um, all of this stuff. I add it all up and I say Victor Wembanyama is the MVP of this league. And you can't make just a statistical case because that's Jokic's. But I think Victor Wembanyama blends all the things I look for in an MVP together better than anyone else, and that's why I would go with Victor Wembanyama. Mm-hmm. Hey, he will be the defensive player of the year. Yeah, I think he's refreshing. I think he's refreshing for the NBA. And I said this after the San Antonio Denver game. Like Wimby can be the story of the season, and Jokic can still be the story of the league. Like LeBron James, I'm not saying you have to be beholden to previous things, but just look at this. Isn't that Jokic can't win the MVP? It's just there's a bigger conversation with Nikola Jokic that goes beyond just one season. And I think it's okay that Victor Wembanyama wins the MVP while still acknowledging that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. And he proved that when these two teams matched up with one another about a week ago. Give it exactly. It could be different criteria. What say you? 719 24/7 1313. Your NBA awards. Coming up next, we'll stick with the association. Who's afraid of the big bad wolves? Welcome in, coming your way live from Widener Field, where tonight the Switchbacks take their shot at Sporting KC of MLS in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup. Kickoff is at 6 on Extra Sports 1300. And if you're streaming the show live today, anywhere you scroll at 740 KVOR and add Extra Sports 1300, you will see Widener Field behind me. So hope to see you out here. Gates are going to open up at 5 o'clock as per usual, an hour before kickoff. And if you cannot make it out, or even, I shouldn't even say that, you realize we have an app that you can listen to the matches on while you're here at Widener Field. Just go to your favorite app store, download the Extra Sports 1300 app, and you can listen to Roland and I from your seat while you enjoy tonight's match. KVOR also has a streaming app, by the way. That would be smart to download as well, where you can listen to this show and any others that you enjoy, whether it's Colorado Springs Morning News, The Richard Randall Show, The Vince Show, Mark Levin, and so on. They're both free to use, they're both free to download, and they're both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. The Nuggets, we now know, will be taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. They will be playing each other for the first time since that fateful Game 7 in which the Denver Nuggets look like they just completely ran out of gas. And we watched the Nuggets collapse in a Game 7 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it was really a continuance of the Timberwolves' continued success over the Denver Nuggets. It felt like Minnesota owned the Denver Nuggets, that they were a bad matchup, that the Nuggets' weaknesses were repeatedly exposed by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I understand, and especially from my producer, that there is a little bit of angst around the idea that the Denver Nuggets will have to match up with Anthony Edwards and company again. But I will remind you what happened a few years ago. The Denver Nuggets, to give a little history lesson, at every point in their history, when they had a team that you thought maybe could compete for a championship, there was one franchise that constantly stood in their way, whether it was the Alex English Nuggets, whether it was the Carmelo Anthony Nuggets, or whether it was the Nikola Jokic Nuggets. And that was the Los Angeles Lakers. Historically, they have been more of a thorn in the side of the Nuggets than Minnesota has ever been. And yet, the year the Nuggets won the title, the Lakers suddenly became not a thing anymore. Not to say that the rivalry didn't exist beyond that, but the Lakers were a problem for the Nuggets until they weren't. And what it took was a Western Conference final where the Denver Nuggets swept right through them. And that was a team that had Anthony Davis, that had LeBron James. And the Denver Nuggets, why they beat them was because the team in LA wasn't the same that beat them in the bubble. And the Denver Nuggets, to their credit, were not the same team that they were in the bubble. They were better. They had Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, playoff Murray, and Nikola Jokic. Those guys played in the couple of those guys played in the bubble, but it was the evolution of the Denver Nuggets. It was some of the additions they made. And again, the Lakers were a thing until they weren't anymore. And then the paradigm completely shifted. And the Nuggets, until Luka hit that shot over Spencer Jones this season, owned the LA Lakers. And Jamal Murray was public enemy number one in LA. So these things are things until they're not. And I think this year is when you're going to see the Minnesota Timberwolves not become a thing anymore for the Denver Nuggets. And it's not to say that their series isn't going to be competitive. I think some people have gotten a little carried away with how much Minnesota is not a thing anymore for the Denver Nuggets. I expect a highly contentious series. I think it's going to be an entertaining series, but you've already noticed the tides changing. The only game this year that the Wolves beat the Denver Nuggets, the Nuggets didn't have Aaron Gordon. So, and look, we could go tit for tat all we want and who was missing from what game and whatever. The fact of the matter is you have seen that some of the problems that Minnesota gives Denver don't exist as much anymore. And I'll start with the way they defend Nikola Jokic. You know, we can make jokes about Karl Anthony Towns, and I don't think any player in the NBA gets a harder time than Karl Anthony Towns does. But you remember before that Game 7, Karl Anthony Towns sitting in the stands at Ball Arena, going over his notes, locked in, doing his homework to try and help slow down Nikola Jokic. And the combination of he and Rudy Gobert replicated what the Lakers were able to do with Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis in the bubble. And it wore out Nikola Jokic. That Karl Anthony Towns isn't on this team anymore. And I like Naz Reid. I do, but it doesn't look the same. Nikola Jokic has had his way with the Timberwolves this year. It's just a different dynamic. It's a different two players that they're throwing up against Nikola Jokic, and the trade was not made by Tim Connolly. In fact, the trade for Rudy Gobert, I believe to this day, was made with Nikola Jokic in mind. But the Wolves, they couldn't afford Cat and Rudy Gobert anymore, and they had to create depth, and they had to make that trade. But the kicker is for Minnesota, what that trade did was take away one of the things that made them a tough matchup for the Denver Nuggets. And I think you're going to see it in this series that Nikola Jokic just doesn't have the problems with Gobert and Reed the way he did Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert in that series. And I'm putting these in no particular order of importance, but if I had to label one as the most important thing, Jamal Murray. If I had to make one statement to explain why, if you're a Nuggets fan, you shouldn't worry about Minnesota as much as you maybe are, it's Jamal Murray. This is a different Jamal Murray. He has been healthy for the vast majority of this season. He has played at the highest level we've ever seen him. And what Minnesota did, and they're still going to be a very difficult team to break down defensively. They're top 10 in defensive efficiency. Again, not to say that Minnesota is a cakewalk for the Nuggets by any stretch of the imagination, but they don't present the problems that they did a couple of years ago. And Jamal Murray is different. He's healthy. He's playing the best basketball of his career. I think he's going to have an easier time breaking down the Minnesota defense. And I think you've seen that throughout the course of the regular season. And it's a different animal in the postseason. I acknowledge it. But if there's one player on the Denver Nuggets that you expect to raise his game and to play even better somehow than he played during the regular season, it's Jamal Murray. And in that way, I am fascinated to see if it's just a smaller gap between Jamal Murray, regular season Jamal Murray, and playoff Jamal Murray, or is there another gear that Jamal Murray is going to hit in the postseason, given the way he has played during the regular season? I think that's one of the most fascinating storylines of this Nuggets playoffs, regardless of the opponent, is we have seen a jump from Jamal Murray, the regular season version. Are we going to see an even bigger jump in the playoff version of Jamal Murray? But even if we don't, I think playoff Jamal, as we know him, healthy, I think is not going to have as much trouble with Minnesota as he did 2 years ago. And speaking of health, I think the third reason here why you shouldn't worry about Minnesota the way you are is the most ironic thing that's going to come out of my mouth in weeks. The Nuggets are healthier than Minnesota. There is actually a team in the NBA that the Denver Nuggets are healthier than going into the playoffs, and that's Minnesota. Anthony Edwards has been in and out of the lineup. Naz Reid has dealt with injury, and I'm not saying it's going to keep either of them out of this series, and I'm not saying that it's going to greatly inhibit how they're able to play, but the Nuggets having a health advantage, not just with Jamal Murray, but throughout the lineup compared to what they had 2 years ago. I mean, that's huge. And the Denver Nuggets, because they are healthy, are a deeper basketball team than they were 2 years ago. Minnesota is not as deep. Even though they made the Karl-Anthony Towns trade to acquire depth, they don't have some of their depth pieces from even last year. And I think this 12-game winning streak, especially the 10, maybe not the last two, for the Denver Nuggets, because there was a lot of really goofy things at play here. But I think you've seen that the Denver Nuggets are deeper than they were 2 years ago. And I think that can make the difference as well. So, again, Anthony Edwards, I expect him to show up, and I expect there to be at least one game where you're like, Anthony Edwards is unguardable. You're going to have that game. But I think all told, the Denver Nuggets are the superior team. And the Wolves are not the matchup problem they used to be. Teams are a thing until they're not. The Lakers were a thing for the entire history of the Denver Nuggets until they weren't. And I think this is the year where we see, and I think that's why this series is necessary, and why I talked about how the path through the postseason for the Denver Nuggets from a storyline standpoint is perfect, because they get to exercise those demons. They get to show that they've moved past it, that they've improved, that Minnesota isn't the problem for them anymore. And then they get a matchup and settle it on the court, who truly is the best team not named Oklahoma City, maybe in the entire NBA, with San Antonio. And then they get the rematch, if they make it through, with Oklahoma City. And I'm saying if they make it through, not Oklahoma City, I'm talking about Denver. If Denver makes it through, then they get the rematch with OKC, and to be able to show if possibly the moves made this offseason make the Nuggets better enough, or better in the right ways, to be able to topple Oklahoma City in a 7-game series. I think it's right. I keep using that word. I think it's right that the Denver Nuggets have to go through Minnesota. And I think they're going to show this year that that these two teams are at different stages than they were a couple of years ago. I think the Nuggets were not the best version of themselves 2 years ago, and I think the Minnesota Timberwolves were. And I think this Nuggets team is a better version of themselves than they were 2 years ago. And I think Minnesota, and I'll cautiously use the word worse, technically they are worse. They're not a bad team, and they're a very good team. And I think it's going to be a compelling series. I think it's Nuggets in 6. That's where I am. I think it's Nuggets in 6. One game, Anthony Edwards is going to be unguardable. And I think there's one more game out there that Minnesota is going to win. Usually the way these things go, if a team wins the first 2 games of a series at home, which the Nuggets have the opportunity to do, then that game 3 becomes the game that you take the underdog. And I think that's kind of how I see this series. Nuggets taking games 1 and 2, Minnesota taking game 3, Nuggets bouncing back and putting the Minnesota Timberwolves on the verge of elimination, and then Anthony Edwards just goes ballistic and keeps the series alive, and then the Nuggets end up finishing it off. I think that's how I see this series going. So it's a 6-gamer. but is it a 6-gamer that is scrap and claw and where the ultimate outcome is in question? I think if the Nuggets take the first 2 games at Ball Arena on Saturday and then we think on Monday, it's not going to be that kind of a series, because the history will tell you the team to go up 2-0 at home in a series, they are not in very much danger of ultimately losing the series. And that's kind of how I see Denver going through this. And I will say, if that's not the case, then maybe we're in for a different looking series. I still think that the Denver Nuggets win, whatever form it takes. I think the Denver Nuggets get through Minnesota. But is it going to be the path or the series that I am anticipating it to be? It could be different. I think the first 2 games at Ball Arena are going to tell us a lot. And we'll see where this goes. But some demons need to be exercised, and the Nuggets have a chance to do that coming up starting on Saturday. That game 1:30. You can hear the game. You can hear the hometown call, because now all the TV games are all national. So if you want a local flair, if you want cause on the call, you could hear it at 1:30 on 740 KVOR. I'll take your thoughts on the Nuggets and Wolves, your early thoughts. We'll continue to talk about it throughout the week, so I'll allow you a chance to change your mind, but just your overall feeling with the Denver Nuggets matching up against Minnesota. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports live from Widener Field after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Join us Monday, May 4th at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the Small Business Bash and Awards celebration. It's all a part of Small Business Week, hosted by Pikes Peak SBDC, Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, and the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado. The week will also include awards, networking, festivities, and live music, plus workshops, panels, and networking events. So much going on for Small Business Week. Make sure you register now at kvor.com. Diana Rossini of The Athletic has resigned from her job at The Athletic. And her resignation is a little bit defiant. There are no admissions in her letter about what people are speculating. Let's just say about the relationship between herself and Mike Vrabel. She actually called it self-feeding speculation that the media has engaged in. And while that may be true, she should be one of the people that understands the media machine as much as anybody. And I'm sure probably not for something as consequential as this, but Diana Rossini has taken part in that, in self-feeding speculation on some things. And she added that she needs to do what is right for me, my family, and the work I have spent my career building. Now, look, there's a lot of smoke here with this. And it's getting to the point where it's hard to imagine that there is no fire when it comes to the nature of the relationship between Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. And if it is just the type of relationship that maybe Diana Rossini is intimating it is, then I feel terrible for her family and terrible for her that she has gone through this, and for Mike Vrabel and his family, for that matter. But there's too much reporting going on around this. There's just too much for me to not think that it's what so many people have speculated it is. And there are just videos upon videos upon videos that have come out from Diana Rossini that are, where she's talking about her husband. And look, this is all in the court of public opinion. This is not a court of law. So we don't adhere to the same standards as much as people would hope that we would. It's just, and I know a lot. I saw Jamel Hill came out in support and basically said if men were held to the same standard in terms of their relationships with their sources, then there would be none of them left. And I think that that's missing the mark and missing what is the accusation here. And I'm not saying it can't exist on with male journalists, but like understand what you are saying when you put it out on Twitter that all male journalists would not exist if they were held to the same journalistic standard. I would hope that Diana Rossini, if what is being accused here, that she and Mike Vrabel were having an affair, I would hope that Diana Rossini was the most isolated incident that there is, man or woman. I hope that this is not pervasive, because one, there's two levels to this. One, there's the morality here of an extramarital affair, and two, Diana Rossini fashions herself a journalist and dabbles in the information trade. Like, if she's putting in, not that betting markets are the most important thing here, but her reporting, people make bets on this. People this has a real consequences. That her reporting impacts relationships with employers and employees when it comes to these players and all this kind of stuff. If her integrity is called into question on all of this, given the impact that it has, then I mean, that's it. I mean, if you don't have your integrity, and then what do you have as a journalist? And she is a journalist. She's not, a talking head like me, just spouting opinions on a daily basis. Like I deal in opinion, she deals in facts. And if she was putting out information to, help somebody that she was involved in a relationship with, then that's just, it's wrong, is what it is. So look, I'd like to believe that this is just the media machine feeding itself and us loving a salacious story. And it turns out that Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini are not doing anything morally or professionally wrong here. But I just say it's a lot of smoke. It's a lot of smoke, and it more and more smoke is billowing as we move forward. And it's, I understand people's pushback here with the idea that, Diana Rossini is the story and not Mike Vrabel. And I understand that. And it's just, as far as the world I live in, I don't want to say that one matters more, but one is more relevant to what I do. We do talk about some of that stuff. We talked about athletes, domestic violence cases, and Rashee Rice, and it's not like we haven't discussed the private lives of athletes and coaches. But what Mike Vrabel did, I think, needs to call into question what kind of a leader he is for the New England Patriots. I mean, he's the leader of that organization, and if what is being accused turns out to be true, I mean, you got to look at Mike Vrabel and you got to say, what kind of a leader is he? The problem is that, or not the problem, but the thing that goes in his favor is that he just led the Patriots to the Super Bowl. Like, he's proven to be the right man for the job, even if there's something going on behind the scenes. And look, there's a sad reality of our country and our world, that how talented you are at your job and how indispensable you are at your job allows you to withstand a lot. And maybe that's not right morally, but that's the reality. The better you are at the job, the more your transgressions or your shortcomings are overlooked. And I think both of them, I mean, it's a pox on both houses in this. Like Mike Vrabel, if he engaged in this, it is reprehensible and he should be criticized. And same with Diana Rossini, but there's another level to this, in that she is a journalist and we're supposed to take her at her word, and that she's unbiased. And when all that is stripped away, even if it's just the mere notion of it rather than actual proof, as Diana Rossini is pushing in her resignation letter, that this isn't true. What you think it is not the case. Once the appearance of integrity going out the window or bias going out the window, then that's a wrap. And I hope that this turns out to be not true. And then I hope Diana Rossini immediately is able to get a job. But everything I have seen and read, I have a hard time believing it's not what we think it is. Again, that's me dabbling in opinion, not dabbling in fact. 719-247-1313. Diana Rossini resigning amid all the speculation that she and Mike Vrabel were engaged in a extramarital relationship that calls into question her reporting. And it should not be lost that Mike Vrabel is an equal party in this, and it should not be lost that he should have to answer for this kind of stuff. And I think he will on a personal level. But the dynamics are just different in Mike Vrabel's job than it is Diana Rossini's. We'll see if that changes. I don't think this story is going away with Diana Rossini's letter. I'll say that much. Take your thoughts, 719-24-7. 13-13. More Drive Time Sports from Widener Field after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Back live at Widener Field, Switchbacks in Sporting Kansas City coming up at 6 o'clock on Extra Sports 1300. And the Switchbacks will be homestanding for a little bit because Saturday they will be back in action in USL Championship play, hosting Monterey Bay FC. It is a 3 o'clock kick here at Widener Field. Get your tickets at switchbacksfc.com. So I think the big storyline going into the NBA playoffs, and we do have the play-in games tonight. I'm marginally intrigued by the Charlotte-Miami game, but I'm here calling a match, and I won't feel too sad that I'm missing out on that live. But as we get through this nonsense that is the play-in, I think the big story right now heading into round one of the playoffs is what's the status of Luka Doncic. Now, Austin Reeves also is missing for LA, but I think Austin Reeves is, at least for the first round, is like completely out. Like there's just no way. Maybe if it's a very long series with Houston, maybe there's an outside possibility, but the way I understand it, that Austin Reeves at best is round two. And it may be too late for the Lakers if it's round two. Now, Luka alone might be able to get the Lakers past Houston. But if he's not available at the beginning of this series, at the very least, I think it gives Houston an opportunity to jump on LA. And then when Luka gets back, how much is going to be, well, how much of a difference can he make? So I think if you're a Laker fan, you're looking at LeBron and saying some of that, turning back the clock you showed down the stretch of the season, we're going to need that. And I think if the Lakers can stay afloat for a potential game 4, game 5 return for Luka, maybe it's possible. But JJ Redick told LA reporters, this is according to Mark Stein, that Luka and Austin Reeves remain out indefinitely and no update on their playing status is expected for next week. So you have to wonder, and I know LA has home court, and that's, you figure that Lakers can win one of those two games, 1-1, maybe fall down 2-1, and then you're hoping there's an update. I think the Lakers have to ask themselves this question, because the grade 2 hamstring strain for Luka is exactly the grade of hamstring strain Aaron Gordon had. And Aaron Gordon, to his credit, fought through it, played in that game 7. He hasn't been the same since. And the Lakers, I understand that the Lakers are an organization that's all about the now, but the gift that you are given by the Mavericks allows you to see beyond the year that's in front of you. And they got the rest of their, to sound a little bit corny, the rest of your lives with Luka Doncic ahead of you. And if you're going to rush him back so he can play for what? If you're down 3-1 by the time that he's, available, then what are you throwing good money after bad? Are you saying that, Luka's, and the Nuggets dealt with this a couple of years ago with the torn ACL for Jamal Murray. Like, they looked at the bigger picture and they said, what is Jamal Murray actually going to be when he comes back? And as difficult as it is for us to basically fold up shop for the year, we got to look out for the longer term. Like, we have a window here with Jamal Murray with a full offseason, being healthy, a chance to come back and look really good and be even more impactful. And I think it's the same thing with Luka. So I think if you're the Lakers, you have to have beyond this year in mind. Now, I'm not a doctor, so could he be 100%? by a pivotal game 5? Maybe. But everything that's coming out, despite Luka's little trip to Spain, still says that it's normal programming, that Luka's not going to be ready early on in this Houston LA series. And it's any chance for Luka to be healthy and come back and make an impact that may ultimately decide the outcome of their series with the Rockets. The Lakers can't go down 2-0. They go down 2-0. I just talked about this with the Nuggets earlier in the hour. A team that goes up 2-0, it's basically curtains. And it doesn't seem worth it to bring Luka back into that situation where you're down 2-0 or down 3-1 or down 3-0 for that matter. So I think you hold out hope if you're a Lakers fan. You hold out hope if you're the Lakers. But you hope that LeBron can, and you know, being at home can keep you in this series. And then you continue to evaluate Luka. And if he gets to 100%, and if you're confident that you're not going to put him in a position, you know, what Aaron Gordon did, and that was for a game 7, for a chance to, you know, maybe end up going to the NBA Finals. This is round 1. You got, and it's a game 4, it's a game 5. It's different. So I think you keep testing it out. You keep seeing if Luka's okay. You check on him every day, day and night, seeing if he's back. And you just cross your fingers and hope that LeBron can, you know, and man, if LeBron can do something in this series, we got to talk about this when we talk about the career of LeBron James. But you're hoping against hope. That's what you're doing if you're the Lakers right now. You hope that LeBron can hold down the fort and turn back the clock. You hope that Luka can be at some point in this series healthy. You hope that this series is still in the balance when that becomes the case. I think my non-medical opinion, I think you're going to have to ask LeBron to win you a first-round series. And then when OKC rolls around in round 2, then you hope that you have Luka. But I just think the longer-term vision has to be at play here. And I think the smart thing for the Lakers, although they probably won't admit it, is to not even truly entertain the idea of Luka playing in round 1 unless this thing goes the distance. And you go from there. And I think it's going to mean that the Lakers are going to get bounced in the first round. I think that's what this means. That's the reality. But the Lakers, with the emergence of Austin Reeves this year, having Luka under contract, you know, whether LeBron stays or goes, at least you've figured out kind of a role for him. So if he stays, then maybe you can manage it. You're not learning on the fly here as they did to start this season. And, you know, maybe you add a Peyton Watson or something to the mix. They have money. This is not the year. The Lakers are not in a position that OKC and Denver are in the West, and maybe Houston for that matter. I think they're in a different position. They're closer to the Spurs than they are that group of teams I just mentioned. The Lakers, you can see next year and the year beyond with those other teams, like the Rockets went all in with KD. The Nuggets are a championship or bust. OKC, they're the defending champions, and they learn from the Nuggets. That window doesn't stay open forever. So I think that the Lakers, not to the way the Spurs can look at it, next 3 to 5 years is what the Spurs can look at. I think the Lakers can say next year we have a shot at this thing, but not if we have Luka, who is continued to be bothered by this hamstring in the way that Aaron Gordon is for the Denver Nuggets. So that's the way I look at this series. I don't think that the Lakers should rush Luka back. And I don't think they can survive unless they do. And even then, I don't know. Because how truly effective was Aaron Gordon in that game 7? I give him all the credit in the world, but really look at it in a broader scope. I don't know how impactful he was in that game 7, or certainly wasn't impactful enough. You hate it. You hate it you hate it unless you hate the Lakers. And I guess some people exist out there that do, but you want to see Luka. You want to see Luka and KD. I'd be just fine seeing the Lakers on through to the second round and seeing Luka go up against OKC. But I just think the Lakers got to be smart here. It's not championship or bust for them. And to bring him back in a situation that isn't, maybe game 7, I think it would be irresponsible. And Rob Pelinka has talked about being the steward of the organization. That's where this applies. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on Luka. Again, the report from Mark Stein, JJ Redick saying that Luka and Austin Reeves remain out indefinitely, and we will not even get so much as an update before next week. And the Lakers will at least have one game, probably 2, by the time that rolls around. Speaking of the text line, Ray, we had had a text earlier. We got any more? We got a couple here before the top of the hour. Okay, go ahead. Oh, this is about the Rossini thing? Okay. But doesn't she have to defend herself here? I mean, like, guilty or innocent, isn't it the right move for her, even if she's doing this in a resignation letter, for her to be defending herself? I mean, she has to think about right now what's going on with her family and her career, but she's got to look forward too. So whether she's guilty, I don't want to say guilty or innocent, like a law was broken. I don't want to say that. But if the accusations are true or if they're not, I would expect nothing less from Diana Rossini than to defend herself. And at least she's doing it in her own words, on her own platforms. I actually have no problem with it. There's no chance in her further fanning the flames. This story is unfortunately one of the hottest things in sports right now. It's not dying down anytime soon. I understand why Diana Rossini did this. I understand why she defended herself, and we'll see if she's defending herself correctly or she's defending herself in doing this as kind of a defiant way of resigning because she knows that what she did was wrong. But I expect nothing less than for her to defend herself. Again, Luka, no update, did not get a miracle cure in Spain, which just goes to show that you don't have to, maybe don't plan your trip to Spain to cure, fix what ails you. Speaking of that, if low testosterone is slowing you down, Synergenics and Low T Center have solutions designed around you so you can get back going. Choose from testosterone shots, pills, or enclomiphene, a treatment option that boosts testosterone without impacting fertility. You could get treated in the clinic or enjoy the convenience of home delivery. Just more options for you. And even the way you pay, there's an option. Either insurance or self-pay, whatever fits your budget. And here's something new starting right now in the month of April. Synergenics is adding PT141, an FDA-approved libido-boosting peptide. More energy, better focus, weight loss, confidence. It's all at Low T Center. Get your edge back. Book your free T test at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Back after this.